Thursday, December 4th. I'm Jim Check. With me Ian Burns. Looking pretty dapper this morning. I like your hair. I wish I had hair like that, but hey. Lots to talk about on the really big show. We got a really big show, actually. More broken promises from the Liberals. Imagine that. And now even the USMCA up renewal is uncertain. Lots here, though. Open borders and the havoc that ensues. Tim Hortons lobbied for more full-time workers. The question is why? Freeland loves the more money for Ukraine. Why do we have to learn from the EU what it costs to join SAFE? Liberals falling apart on oil. Another Liberal scandal that the government corrupted media ignores. Food prices soar. Bell has to pay up on vaccine mandates. Champagne touts amount to $11 for Canadians that need the help most. The PM is basically a spider when it comes to the webs that connect him to Canada. CBC, the station of propaganda. Rustad. We're going to see where Rustad is here. We're going to monitor this. We might have an announcement as we're going here. Time is running out. EB finally admits Trump is not all that ails BC Forestry. It's amazing how the truth finally catches up to you. Automakers celebrate with Trump as he ends mandates. Bessett calls out the New York Times. Trump warns Starmer. Putin gets warm welcome in India. And tech is our salvation. Lots of stuff in the tech sector there with Jensen Huang talking up Optimus there. But lots going on, including, you just said, Carney's just confirmed that he's going to meet Trump tomorrow.
Indeed, in Washington, D.C. So God knows what's going to happen there. It's for the FIFA thing, for the World Cup draw.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, it's been known that he was going to go for a long time, but
if that's all we get is a FIFA meeting and nothing on trade, that'll be, at some point, even the government crippled and corrupted media there will have to own some of that.
Well, that would be, I can't even remember what number meeting that would be, but what was it, 5, 6, something? We'll have to count it, but it's a lot of meetings and nothing good has happened. So,
Ian,
eventually it's going to add up, isn't it?
Who cares? Who cares? Isn't that how you have to do the hand motion? Who cares? Who cares?
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
He's good at those hand motions, isn't he? It's like it was like he had a little glass of a little flute of champagne. It's like, sacre bleu.
Who cares? Why would you care? Right? Why would you care anyway? Why would you care? We're going to kick it off here with Trump talking about the USMCA, though.
It's fine. You know how they recoup? From this point forward, they'll do very well.
Can you also talk about the USMCA and what you're thinking about renegotiating that with the automakers?
Well, that's just an ongoing thing. It expires in about a year, and we'll either let it expire or we'll maybe work out another deal with Mexico and Canada. But look, Mexico and Canada have taken advantage of the United States, like just about every other country, in all fairness. It's not them, I'm not blaming them. But every country, because we had stupid people running our country. We had a lot of stupid people running. That's why we have $38 trillion in debt. But the beautiful thing about the tariffs is we'll start paying off that debt. The money coming in, they're finding money in our country now that they never knew existed. The other day, $30 billion. Where did it come from? I said, why don't you check the tariff shelf? They said, sir, that tariff hasn't started yet. It doesn't start till January. I said, no, it started 2 months ago. They called back, sir, you're right, it was from tariffs. No, we have a whole different country. I hope the Supreme Court, I pray that the Supreme Court understands the importance of the sensible, really, I mean, this would be country threatening.
That's good. It's just basically, you've heard Trump talk, he repeats himself over and over again. Like 90% of when he talks, he just recycles his messaging.
Yeah, but that's kind of, to be fair, so did Mark Carney, so did any successful politician you want to talk to, even. They all do that, don't they? Because they make the assumption that the audience, that the electorate, is so stupid and has such bad memory and doesn't pay any attention that you just have to say the same thing over and over again. Like,
Yep.
we're going to do things at speeds we never thought imaginable. It's like they all kind of do it. So just to get in there and defend Donald Trump.
Here's Marco Rubio, and this is something that Rubio is saying this, and this is a message to the world here. Listen to this.
And I can go down the list. Why has he focused on mass migration? It's very simple, because no country is safe if you can just walk in without us knowing who you are into your country. We've seen the destruction that that's wreaking, not just in our own country, but the impact that it's having in Europe and in many other parts of the world. You talk about trade deals and the trade.
Yeah, and you just said that Jean Chrétien's been summoned to the parliament there in talking about mass migration as well.
Well, yeah, based on an allegation which has upset the Bloc Québécois, an allegation that during the 1995 referendum, he instructed his immigration minister to speed up the approval of citizenship applications, because the assumption was that citizens would be more likely to want to stay in Canada, which I think is true. So, I mean, the Quebec nationalists absolutely despise Chrétien, don't they? He is their bête noire. He is the ultimate demon that they all hate. I mean, alongside Pierre Trudeau. So it's no surprise that they're doing this. It's just a little bit, I mean, I suppose Chrétien probably wouldn't have expected to be alive still to have to actually deal with this kind of thing, but his longevity has got him in a bit of trouble. But I'm sure he'll be fine. But we do have to sort of keep an eye on that, though, on Quebec. I mean, they are, if the polls are to be believed, they are about to elect a provincial government that is vociferously pro-separation. And there's a lot of talk about how younger Quebecois are much more inclined to separate. So it hasn't gone away, that. So, I mean, certainly a topic to keep an eye on.
This mass migration has definitely changed a lot of people's opinions in throughout the world. And I was just in Tokyo, and no homelessness that I saw in 10 days in Tokyo and Osaka. No open drug use out on the streets. Very clean, everything clean, no graffiti, no nothing. And they're taking a hard line on migration right now, as are some countries, including Hungary, Poland, and stuff like that, and the United States now taking a more hardline stance on it. Canada still continues down the same path, though, and we have, millions of Canadians without access to a family doctor. We have runaway inflation, rents that are still high, and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of that tied to the out-of-control immigration. And we did a story yesterday showing you that there's a lot of immigrants in Canada that have criminal backgrounds and the government can't even find them.
But Michelle Rempel-Garner, the conservative,
coming up actually.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to say she's managed some successes, I think. Some legislative successes in committee, like revisions to legislation. And she's also doing something else, which is she's cutting through. Now the Conservatives have at least two people that you might know, rather than just the one guy.
Well, this is CBC has learned that coffee giant Tim Hortons, not a Canadian company anymore, has been calling on Ottawa to lift its cap on foreign workers, and it has been lobbying foreign leaders for more than a year, federal leaders for more than a year, on getting more immigrants and the foreign temporary workers to work at Tim Hortons. Unbelievable.
But still, like I said yesterday, what is more unbelievable? All these things that you hear about Tim Hortons, all these things you experience at Tim Hortons, or the fact that every time, at least I drive past a Tim Hortons, wherever it is in Canada, the line goes out of the parking lot. Like, what's going on? People just they just love Timmy's. They love it to death, don't they?
We just learned, and this just dropped. I put a link in there, if you could put it up there. John Rustad has just resigned. We've been waiting for that. We were going to talk about that later, but we're watching this as it goes. If we could just put in this link. He has resigned as leader of the BC Conservative Party. Are you able to get that link in there? We're going to play this clip here.
You all good? Pretty good?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thanks for coming together on short notice. Obviously, it's been a very interesting session, a very interesting end of the session. So I'm just going to start off with the obvious here this morning, that I am announcing that I am stepping down as the leader of the Conservative Party of British Columbia. I will be remaining as an MLA and carrying out the work that needs to be done with regards to representing my riding of the Chaco Lakes.
There you go. That was well expected. The funding had been cut off. The Conservative Party had asked for it. But yesterday there was so much pressure, and he was like, "You can play that song. Hell no, I won't go." And he stuck around to the end. I had Gavin Dew scheduled yesterday for an interview regarding, like the BC small businesses, and they were going through a bunch of stuff. So that was, hopefully we get him today to see what's going on. He is one of the people that the polls highlighted as if, potential leader, but I'm sure there's a lot more names that are going to be coming up on that. But Ian noticed first that John Rustad actually changed his Twitter profile and took off leader before he even went out and did the press conference. So he managed to fix his Twitter profile first and took off leader.
How strange is that we live in that world? It's almost like on Facebook back where you can have the relationship status, and it would be like, is in a relationship with Cindy or something, and then that would disappear, and it'd be like, oh no, is the relationship over? I just can't believe that it's now like high politics and dramas. It's like, this is like the modern version of a coup or something like that, isn't it? Like Julius Caesar being shanked in the Senate, but it happens on Twitter profiles.
So again,
but you can see, I would just note based on that video that you just showed there, you can see how gutted he is, can't you? And you can see how reluctant that was. Yeah. I mean, he's fought that like to almost an unbecoming extent. It was almost kind of like being drunk at the dinner party, wasn't it? It's like Elizabeth May delivering a speech, being dragged off the stage. It's like, come on, mate. Like, hey, no, like your caucus doesn't want you anymore. It's gone. It's finished. It's not good for you. Like, but yeah, he didn't want to do it.
At least he didn't weep like Justin Trudeau. I guess that's a plus. And but the writing was on the wall. I mean, there was a couple of mistakes that he made, and a couple of mistakes if he looks back. And one was when Kevin Falcon resigned and handed him the ball at the 1 yard line, and he threw it down on the ground and said, "I don't need that." I think that is going to be the moment that he looks back and says that was the biggest mistake ever. Instead of picking the team, he would have been in government right now. The NDP wouldn't be there. And he threw that down and then left those BC United candidates in the wind for 2 weeks before ever even responding to them. And then a lot of them ran as independents, and it cost him seats that cost him the government. And then another one, I think the other biggest misstep that he made, well, there's a few, but Eleanor Sturco, booting Eleanor Sturco, one of the strongest voices out of the BC Conservative caucus there. I mean, that had to be one of the worst things he did, which rattled a lot of other MLAs, and then shaming Amelia Boltby there with mental health. That was like, oh my God, there were so many missteps, and he just wasn't ready, I don't think. And but kudos to him for bringing a Conservative Party that basically got rid of the BC United Party and brought a Conservative Party out of nothing into like a real contender, and then just some missteps along the way, which really
also hurt. He completely broke the rules. He broke the rules of British Columbia politics, and he said things and did things that the BC United, Gandalf, wise wizards of BC United and the BC Liberals always said, no, you can't do that. This is British Columbia. You can't speak like that. You can't make arguments that you would make in somewhere like Ontario or Manitoba or something like that from a Conservative perspective. You can't do it because this is a really left-wing province. You'll get eaten alive. And he just did it anyway, and very, very nearly won the election. So I think he proved that a lot of things were possible, and definitely that victory from nothing, from nowhere, with no resources, just him. and partly motivated by revenge, like a kind of Shakespearean revenge tragedy where he just wanted to get Falcon back, and he did it. Like, I mean, he will go down as a major figure in BC politics. I would suspect, even as you pointed out, for so many reasons, he was not capable of being the leader of the opposition. He couldn't do it. He just didn't have. I don't think he had what was necessary in himself, and he also didn't have the team around him. But talking about cutting through and like actually getting your face out there into the public, getting your ideas out there, that was his biggest failure. He just wasn't doing that. It wasn't happening. And Eleanor Sturko, the one that he kicked out of the party, was doing it. That was quite an awkward situation, wasn't it? And then she got turfed.
She's likely a front runner for leader of the party, and this has got to be David Eby's worst day, I would say, because he's counting on this, because the NDP stovetop is boiling over everywhere. I mean, it's just a mess. It's an absolute mess. And the only thing they had going for them is that the Conservatives were a bigger mess. We interviewed Jonathan Kay a while back, and he said, as bad as Eby is living in La La Land, the Conservatives are in complete chaos. And this likely is the moment that the Conservatives are waiting for to regroup. And Jonathan Kay says there's got to be a Stephen or Stephanie Harper out there to take this party to where it needs to go, and basically maybe even send the NDP into hinterland where they need to go and regroup as well, because they've become a far left extremist party as well.
Somebody in the on YouTube in the comments has said Eleanor Sturko is a full-on liberal with a capital L, big L. I've heard that a lot of times. I've heard that criticism of her, but I don't know. I mean, something that is true. I know I was praising Rustad for breaking all the rules and still winning, but something that's true. If you want to be in opposition and then win an election and govern sensibly from the right, you do have to bring in people like Eleanor Sturko and Gavin Dew and Renee Merrifield. Renee Merrifield is another really good example, who you speak to her every week, so you can talk to her about this, I guess. But I've observed her politics evolve, she might say, or change since the Rustad phenomenon. I remember interviewing her about John Rustad when he first came on the scene, and she was very disapproving of his policies and his attitude and that kind of thing. But now, if you listen to Renee Merrifield now, you two talk, she often enough says quite similar things. Like, she's kind of in agreement, and so is Gavin Dew, and so is Eleanor Sturko. It's kind of like Rustad has moved. The Rustad phenomenon has moved the dial a bit. I think it's moved the Overton window. So I think people like Eleanor Sturko, you might be surprised actually what she would the sort of policies that she would support as leader. I think things have changed. She's not going to be like Kevin Folgan. It's not going to be, and even Kevin Folgan was kind of a bit more. He was pushing it a bit, if you remember in your interviews with Kevin Folgan. Yeah. He changed as Rustad emerged. Like, that's what happens in politics. It's all about sort of trying to find a sensible position for yourself to win an election. And in BC, it's from the right anyway. It's shifted. It's changed. So Eleanor Sturko, I don't think she would be a liberal, really. I think she would change.
Yeah, I believe that Renee Merrifield has really become comfortable with herself, and she speaks more like naturally now as opposed to when she was in government. I think she's really coming to her own, and I think she would be a great asset back in the legislature if she ever chose to go back there, because I think she is really, it takes well. I mean, that was her first term in there, so I think she would do well.
And just think how much it's changed, how much social attitudes and political attitudes have changed since she first stepped foot in there. She's evolved. And that's the important thing to bear in mind. Just because she might have said things that sounded liberal, and Eleanor Sturko that sounded liberal in the past, we're all changing all the time. We're always responding, aren't we, to events.
I think
I wouldn't condemn someone forever because they used to be liberal or something.
I think BC is a province where if you can find the center, that's where you need to be to win this province, because David Eby is a far left extremist, and then they accused John Rustad of being a far right extremist, which they used that to kind of win votes, and they used they tried to stick the label of Trump on him, and he wasn't able to shake it off because he did bring in some people into his party that weren't vetted enough, and that caused some fractures as well. And hopefully whoever the voice is that can come in there can be that Stephanie or Stephen Harper and bring some healing back to British Columbia.
But you said, just to add to that, you say AB's a left-wing extremist, but I'm not. I don't know. I'd say he's definitely left-wing. He's definitely a progressive. And you can argue about how far into progressivism he is. It seems that he is pretty deep into it. But remember, before the election, we're talking about how Renee Merrifield and other people changed. Look at how EB changed. He changed his tune on almost every major policy, almost everything, because he was so scared of John Rustad. He went way to the right. And just yesterday, by his standards, I'm not saying he was on the right, but he moved right. And yesterday he was asked a question about the Green Party, and he was talking about the Green Party being like extremists, and he listed off all the things that they don't support. And it was like, mostly it was things that he also didn't support like a year or two ago. Yeah. It just really highlights how fluid this all is. It changes so rapidly.
I think the key is that they're starting to realize that the province of BC is center, and that they have to move to the center. Because right now, EB's and his team have got to be like a little bit worried right now, because they were calling an election. They could have won majority, probably, like if they would have called an election with Rustad still at the helm. But now, depending on who they put in as a leader, EB's got to be worried about what's happening now.
Absolutely, especially as things just get worse and worse. Not just forestry, but just affordability in general, housing, these land claims. It's becoming like impossible to stay in power, I think, in BC. If there's a halfway decent opposition, it has to be inevitable that he's going to get kicked out.
I mean, like I said, the stovetop is boiling over, and that's finance, economics, business, land claims, economy. Like it's a mess everywhere you look. Healthcare. Look at the healthcare. We talk about it so many times. And here's your Michelle Rempel here. She basically, we got a little clip here for her first. We'll play the clip. Back to the temporary.
We have a 20% youth unemployment rate nationally right now, and the temporary foreign worker program has played a big role in removing entry-level job opportunities for youth. I've posted many times about how entry-level jobs, particularly at fast food restaurants, we see these requests for LMIAs, and I'm sorry, I can't believe that there aren't Canadians across the country that won't do these jobs. I think that is a canard, like a myth that has been propagated by industry, who has used the Liberals' policy of just importing low-wage labor, that it's not fair to the people coming to Canada either, right? Because they're essentially indentured to these jobs. The UN has described the program as akin to slavery. And where I think we should be focused, and the reason why I think it's so important to abolish the TFW program, is that the government should be focused on skills training, labor mobility across the country, and restoring that first opportunity for young Canadians. So our position stands, and the industry will have to adapt, but that's where the conversation with lobbyists, with people who want to keep the status quo, should be, okay, we have 20% youth unemployment. How do we get those kids into these jobs? How do we train up the skills? How do we get people to move across the country? And I think that's where the smart betting long on Canadian kids and betting long on the Canadian economy conversation should be.
We've talked about that in the past as well, that UN report saying that, Canada, some of the immigration policies border on modern day slavery. You and I have talked about it as well. And it's also hurt. The policy benefits the few, the Tim Hortons, at the expense of the many, where you can't get access to healthcare, rents rising, inflationary costs, so many different factors. Can't get into colleges because of the colleges prefer the foreign students as well, because they get more money from it. Look, what was that one, Contesca, where the dean there was making $600,000 a year, and then they were the highest users, or we want to call the abusers of the foreign student program. And then you said you shared some of your own realities of riding around in Uber drivers saying that they're here on they're here to go through catering school. They're just gaining access to Canada. This is just liberal policies, and then, like Rubio and them, Marco Rubio and them, accuse the Democrats in the United States of importing foreigners so that they can win elections, and that's been said here in Canada as well. So,
I think there's another feature here. We're talking about it as if it's completely new, but it's not really, is it? Certainly not in the Canadian context. You had people coming over from England, Doug Ford's ancestors coming over from England, naughty boys who were basically exiled out of England, came to Canada. But there's so many examples, Irish as well, Germans, some Poles came to Canada, and they would do crap jobs, and that includes my relatives, sort of fairly close relatives I still know in Toronto. He came over in the 50s, and he had all kinds of jobs. He was like shooting grouse, and he was in a pretty sort of precarious situation. But the difference is, within not very long, he got a very good job at, I believe, Chrysler, and had a beautiful house, a family. He got pretty well off in the end. I just feel like, is that likely now when you come over on one of these random visas? You're working in Tim Hortons, you come from India, you don't even speak English. I just think that kind of the ability to progress through the classes and sort of reach stability and wealth and being a kind of a happy, jolly Canadian citizen, I'm not really sure that's available to these people, and that's what makes it different. That's what makes it almost a bit sinister, because it's it does feel more like, well, no, it's not even like indentured servitude, because at the end of your indentured servitude contract, you would be free, and you'd usually be given a stipend, you'd be given some money, and you'd be, like a lump sum, and then you could go off and be a success. But it's not really even like that. It's more akin to slavery, I think, if you look at it from a purely economic perspective, because it feels like there isn't really light at the end of the tunnel. It's just kind of, you're going to be on the bottom forever now. And that, to me, that is the big difference. Because obviously, you can even attest to this. Your family also came over and had to really struggle. But there was light at the end of the tunnel. It was possible to make something of yourself. I just feel like now, is that really on the cards for these people?
Yeah, my mom and dad picked tobacco in Ontario and traveled across the country, always looking for a better job. Worked kitchens, waitressing, cooking, all those different things. And then, eventually ended up in a sawmill, my dad working there and stuff like that. But Tim Hortons wraps itself in the flag, not a Canadian company anymore, wraps itself in the flag, and in the background goes after temporary foreign workers instead of the high unemployment youth in Canada here. Because what reason? I don't know what the reason is, why they don't go after trying to employ of our youth, right? There's been a lot of excuses. We've done a few stories on it, and it always comes down to they don't want to pay a lot.
Well, often the franchisees are from India, aren't they? They are immigrants themselves.
Yeah.
And then they hire more immigrants from India. That's kind of how it's worked. And I guess they can run it more efficiently. They can run it with lower costs then.
We've done some stories on it, and with so many abuses as well in this temporary foreign workers, where employers, again, abusing this temporary foreign workers. One, because they can't speak the language, and some of them come over illegally and that. So those ones you can really abuse, right? Because they're not going to rat you out. So shameful what it's done. The policies that benefit the few at the expense of the many. Here's Freeland again. She's making some news here. Look at that happy face. Freeland calls Ukraine a fantastic investment and pledges, as Ottawa pledges, another $235 million. How much money do we have to spend before we have to ask for money? When do we ask for money? Because Ukraine probably has more money than us at this point. And then
they certainly are willing to exploit their natural resources. So theoretically, they could end up bringing in a pile of cash.
And then we couldn't get a straight answer from McGuinty on how much they had to pay to get into this EU SAFE program. But where did we get the answer from? The EU tells us. Right? Like, why are the Liberals so unwilling to share the truth? Why do we have to get the answers elsewhere? Turns out it's 10 million euros or 16 million Canadian dollars. And David McGuinty, the defense minister, refused to tell Canadians how much it costs to come in. Like, what's the deal? What is wrong with the Liberals? What's wrong with what's wrong with the truth?
I mean, to think that the EU, the European Union, makes them look bad in this way. The European has come out and made the Liberals look like, you know, the Kremlin or something. They just will not reveal information. While the EU is like a disgrace, is an absolute disgrace to transparency, democratic norms, all the rest of it. But they've come out just right away, just like, oh yeah, 10 million euros, or $16 million, I believe, is the that's the exchange rate right now. $16 million. They just, oh yeah, whatever. And then watch McGuinty, watch him squirm, watch that press conference. It's like, what is going on? There is such an obvious disease that's spread through the Liberal Party when it comes to just answering basic questions and just being transparent. It's disgusting, frankly. I hate to use that emotive word, but it's repulsive. It's horrible to see, especially, as I repeat again and again, from the party that says it's going to protect democracy. It's the only party that can protect democracy. They keep telling us that. But when are they going to start acting in a democratic way? The EU has to come in. It's just astonishing. I mean, this is such a huge story to me. Obviously, there's no outlet in Canada that I'm aware of that's reporting it in this way. It's like Liberals refuse to reveal something. The bloody EU did. But there's also another thing here. If you keep reading on, the British were going to have to pay $10.6 billion Canadian dollars. That's what their entry fee was going to be. And then the EU guy, the same one that told us about this, the Canada's fee, he said that's because it's based on how many contracts you're likely to get. So the British are likely to get billions and billions of dollars worth of contracts. The Canadians are going to get nothing because the entrance fee is only $16 million. That means that they don't have any confidence in Canada as a bidder. So they're not going to sell any contracts to Canada because the entry fee is so low. I mean, what does that tell you as well about this great plan that the Liberals have to pivot to Europe away from the United States? It doesn't look particularly good right now.
Performative at best. Well, let's go check out our friends at the CBC and see how they're covering this story. Let's see what they got here. They got Carney going to meet on the sidelines of FIFA. Again, who cares about FIFA? We do care about a trade agreement, but trade tensions temporarily on back burner as PM visits Washington on a FIFA celebration. Yeah, that's important to Canada. That is so important, right? So important to Canada. Trump, 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 Trump. That's all we see in here.
That's a good one. An AI toy meant for kids was happy to chat about sexual fetishes.
Again, the CBC.
Oh, this is actually a very interesting one, though, which Ottawa begins to consider possibility of a Quebec referendum. We like it.
There you go.
That's news.
The Liberal Party fractured. Stephen Guilbeault leading these fractures here, and let's listen to what he has to say here.
I mean, as I said to your, my apologies, as I said to your colleagues, I sincerely doubt that the new pipeline will ever get built. We still have carbon pricing, and we will continue having an industrial carbon pricing, but I disagree with some of the fundamental elements in this memorandum of understanding. I think we are putting a lot on the table and getting nothing in return.
Stephen Guilbeault.
So strange.
He is strange.
He said the same thing to Vasi, and we're going to watch that later.
Let's watch
but
this.
I would just...
No, go ahead.
Okay, let's continue.
Yeah, go ahead. Play the Vasi one.
We're going to play it, okay.
Was difficult with the agreement was the fact that we had made an agreement with Elizabeth May from the Greens to support us in the budget by not including a specific subsidy to oil and gas, and it's explicitly stated in the budget that we wouldn't do that. And then we turn around 2 weeks later and we put it in this agreement with Alberta. That was I was one of the person who was asked to work with Ms. May. Did you help convince her to support the budget? I did. I wasn't the only one, but I did, and I felt that this was not a genuine gesture on our part. She supported us in good faith. I don't think she will support us moving forward. I think that bridge has been burned, and to me that was something that was difficult to accept. I think, yes.
That's good.
Betrayal.
I think the one that feels the most betrayal is Stephen Guilbeault himself, and he's trying to push some of that onto Elizabeth May, because he said.
But also, why do you want to have a kind of informal alliance with the Green Party anyway? I mean, you're going to explain yourself. I know you need the votes desperately, but do you really want to sort of attach the Liberal Party's name to the Green Party? The Green Party under Elizabeth May is quite a sort of radical organisation. It's kind of a bit awkward, isn't it, to be in bed with someone like that?
Yeah, I think, like, again, he's projecting his own thoughts of betrayal onto somebody else so that he can say, oh, she feels betrayed. I think the person that feels betrayed, and that's why the resignation, is Stephen Guilbeault. He was, definitely one thing you give him credit for, he is an idealist that is living up to his ideals, I guess, but at the expense of the public. Well,
I don't know if he is living up to his ideals. Like, I'm not convinced. I watched that whole interview with Vasily Capello, so he's talking about, pipelines aren't necessarily bad and things like that. I mean, I don't know. Is he still the guy in the orange jumpsuit trying to climb up CN Tower or whatever? I think he's kind of not been true to himself in many ways as well. But something I wanted to point out about that previous clip in the House of Commons there, and he says it again in the next clip that we're going to look at. Just listen to the way that he speaks about as this kind of like ungrateful, rebellious child. And it's like, and he's given it like a stern telling off. Or, maybe another way to look at it is as a kind of, as an opponent, as an enemy, or like a foreign country. He's speaking to it similar to the way he would speak about the United States in a trade deal. He's saying, we gave them all of this and they didn't give us anything in return. It's like, you're talking about your own country, apparently. These are supposed to be your people. And you're speaking about them like that. It's surreal to me to see that. And he says it again in this clip. So just
let's watch this up.
Observe.
And I feel we left a lot on the table for not getting a lot in return. This idea that we have to abandon our clean electricity regulation that will help us clean up our electricity grid across the country for decades to come in exchange for Alberta putting a better price on pollution. They already have to do that because of the federal pricing system. So we're not getting anything in return. Alberta's not giving Canadians a better deal out of that. I have supported the Pathways project to capture carbon and store it in the ground for many years, but people have to understand that it's not a magic bullet. It will help reduce pollution from the oil sands sector by about 12%. It's not 50%, certainly not 100%. It's 12%. And 12% is not nothing, but it will still make oil sands one of the most carbon intensive in the world. Like right now, it's about 10 times more pollution intensive than oil that's produced in Newfoundland, for example. So it's going to be slightly better, but it'll be nowhere near what's produced even in other parts of Canada, let alone the North Sea or elsewhere in the world.
Hey, Okanagan.
That's good. Yeah, there you go.
Isn't that remarkable? I can't be the only one that thinks that's nuts. He's speaking about Canadians. He's speaking about Canada. He's speaking about his own country and his own countrymen and women. And he's talking about them like, it's like he's talking about Donald Trump. It's like he's talking about a foreign country. It's bloody Alberta, the Canadian province of Alberta. I just found that, I just couldn't believe that when I heard him say that. And I think he checked himself a little, didn't he? Where I was like, they didn't give us, they didn't give Canadians anything in return.
I mean, that's the feeling that a lot of Albertans have, is that they were treated like the ugly stepsister, and they're bringing everything to the ball, and they're the ones that are like what comes out of Alberta is one of the greatest contributors to Canada's GDP in the export markets, and
Canada's main export, the foundation of our prosperity here. The reason that you and I are having this conversation, the reason that we had breakfast today, the reason that like cars are driving around, it's basically based on fossil fuels. I mean, specifically in the case of Canada, because it's our number one export. And he talks about it like it's a curse. He talks about it like it's cancer, and he's the doctor trying to get rid of the cancer. What has happened to this man? What has happened to this poor little man? He has been radicalized and pushed to the extremes, to the point where if he doesn't realize, I don't know what can be done, but he is effectively pro-poverty. What can you do about people like that? Somebody that fetishizes poverty for no reason. You see, he said the carbon capture will reduce emissions by 12% on the oil sands, and he's like, that's not nothing, but it's not enough. It's kind of like, it is nothing, because it's 12% of nothing. It's 12% of the oil sands, which is nothing. If you really want to bring down CO2 emissions in the world, that's nothing. It is nothing, Stephen. The whole thing is nothing. You kill Canada's prosperity for nothing.
Canadians suffering, and we're going to see a lot more of that later. We've shown lots of the charts. We show the economy. I mean, the Liberals will tell you that the economy is great. You know, the economy is great for those that get to grift the Canadian taxpayer, sure. But for most Canadians that are, a couple $100 away from meeting their monthly obligation, not so great. The ones that can't get a family doctor, the ones that can't afford their rent, their mortgage, can't afford to put gas in their car, not so great. But the Laurentian elite and the corrupted, crippled media don't tell those stories, do they?
And also, the story's not told is the cleverer countries, the more intelligent people in the world, like the Arabs, for example, who are vastly more intelligent than Canadians, apparently, the Canadian ruling class. Look what they've done with their gigantic bounty and their oil wealth. You know, they're not, Dubai is not suffering right now, is it? Abu Dhabi, to the extent that the leader of Canada is going over there to beg for investment. You know, didn't have to be this way. It really didn't have to be this way. And it's like a long drawn out tragedy, isn't it?
Just think if we could go back 2 years when Mark Carney was the economic advisor, when the Japanese were here begging for our LNG, the Germans were begging, the South Koreans were begging for our LNG. We refused them and said that there is no future, no business case for LNG. Now all of a sudden LNG for the Liberals and the NDP is like, the great savior. And but who signed all the contracts? Oh, that was the Americans signed those contracts now with the Trump administration that now believe that drill baby drill. And the Norwegians, they have a huge sovereign wealth fund. We say this over and over again. Energy is everything. Energy is everything. And Canada continues to squander its energy. And here's another Liberal MP and says Carney will have to answer questions about his flip-flop on the tax credit. And this is Patrick Weller warning the PM that his U-turn on tax credits for enhanced oil recovery projects released as a promise not to offer tax credits for such projects, but the deal he signed with Alberta last week gives the tax breaks a green light. Not making many friends there, because obviously the BC Liberal MPs very much against a pipeline to the West Coast as well. I don't know how we're supposed to get out an outside market if we can't get our oil to the West Coast or the East Coast. And then the only place it has to go is the United States. And I can almost guarantee it, if the Keystone XL pipeline is enacted, that Trump will take that oil at a discount and resell it. Resell it to the world.
I think the truth, if these people were willing to be completely honest with us, the truth is that they would say something like Mark Carney 1.0 said a couple of years ago, which is we should keep most of that oil in the ground and not do anything with it. Don't send it west, don't send it east, don't even send it to the Americans, don't send it to anyone, just leave it in the ground, and we'll just have wind turbines, etc. And we'll live off that flat line that we keep showing, Canada's power, total power generation since 1985, that can just stay flat forever, even though we'll continue to bring in millions of people from Asia. They can come and live here, but we won't increase energy, so we'll just ration it. I really do think that's what these people reckon. Like when I say they're radicalized, I'm not being facetious. I'm not being flippant. I think they really, truly have been radicalized. The same way that somebody who supports Islamic State has been radicalized, or somebody that's any of these extremist organizations. I think it's like that. It really, that's not an exaggeration. They hate oil. They despise oil, and they despise everything that goes along with it. The sort of men in hard hats driving, cranes around or whatever it is and processing the oil. I think they just despise that, fundamentally hate it, and want it to go away forever. And they don't care about the consequences. They don't care about what the cost is, because they're extremists and they've been radicalized.
Well, the key thing is that what the world wants and needs is energy. Canada has a ton of it, and we have policies that suppress it. And there's somebody on the comments saying that they're living off one meal a day. Norway has a sovereign wealth fund of over $300,000 per person. We could have the same thing. We could have more abundance for everybody. Our energy is our key to success, and it is beneath our feet. And we have a government that continues to suppress it. And if you read the book, they want to keep 80% of it in the ground. Why? Why? These Laurentian elite, they jet around the world, they take money. Stephen Guilbeault even, they still won't answer to those documents. There's allegations of $200+ million funneled into his companies. Why won't they release the documents? Why won't the Liberals just answer questions or become accountable or transparent? And why won't the media hold them to account? Here's another question from Pierre Poilievre. Poilievre, because this should be one of the biggest scandals right now. Poilievre asked about the Stellantis contract that both CBC and CTV are ignoring today. We just went on the CBC website. Was it on there? Did they see anything about the Stellantis thing that Melanie Jolie said that they wanted, the Stellantis wanted the redactions? Stellantis said, no, we didn't. We learned it from Stellantis. We didn't learn it from, the Liberal MPs. Now she says she read the contract. I watched the whole interaction with her again. Now she says, first she said she didn't read the contract. Now she read the contract. I don't know what to believe from Melanie Jolie, but here it is. And
I don't know if she knows.
It's just absolutely ludicrous. Let's watch a little bit of this here.
Beginning of the question, the member did lose one question, but I'd like him to start from the top on that one.
Cannot stand up for workers if he cannot even stand up and answer my questions, Mr. Speaker. And that finance minister is not stood up for workers either. He signed a $15 billion sweetheart subsidy deal with Stellantis, and now that same company, taking our tax dollars, the equivalent of $1,000 for every family in Canada, is shipping the jobs to the United States of America. The current industry minister says she has not even read the $15 billion contract. Has the Prime Minister even read the contract, or did he simply look at the $15 billion deal and say, who cares?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians who are watching at home are looking at someone whose only need has ever made was to come to this House, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we have always stood to make sure we will build this country. We will attract investment, Mr. Speaker. He should be ashamed. Ask Canadian, when is the last deal he brought in this country, Mr. Speaker? Ask him when he created one job in his country apart his own job, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we will always stand for workers. We will bring investment. We will build the strongest economy in the G7 because we believe in Canada. We're going to fight, Mr. Speaker, every single day for Canada.
The honourable leader of the opposition.
You're going to go and report to the Prime Minister to the Witness Protection Program because he refuses to stand in this House and answer about his government's expenditure of $15 billion, $1,000 for every Canadian family to one company, supposedly to create jobs. That same company now ships those jobs south of the border, and the government is covering up the contract. Yesterday, we learned from the company that they don't have any reason to retract the contract. So why doesn't the government release the full details of the contract so that Canadians can find out how badly the Prime Minister ripped them off?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
3 points. First, he should ask the member from Windsor to come see from his side of the House whether she agrees with what he says regarding the Stellantis workers in Windsor. First. Yeah. Second, when it comes to the documents, the committee we had a contract. They broke the contract. Stellantis did. We'll get our money back, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
3 points, Mr. Speaker, about this $15 billion bailout and handout. She didn't read the contract, she didn't read the contract, and she didn't read the contract. How can she possibly claim she's going to get the money back when she doesn't know what legal powers are in the contract? Because she admits she didn't read the contract, Mr. Speaker. So my question to her, as families are lining up at food banks because they can't afford food, how does she justify charging every single household $1,000 for a handout to a company shipping jobs south of the border?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, I didn't admit that. Second, I read the contract.
That's
and
good.
third,
That's good.
Can you imagine being that unrepentant when you'd made a gigantic mistake that had cost billions of dollars, cost people like 42 million people lots of money? The whole country is suffering because of that mistake. Can you imagine then standing up when you're challenged about it and having that sort of attitude? I wouldn't even have that sort of attitude if, like, I bumped into somebody and they were being rowdy about it. I'd be like, oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I bumped into you there. But can you imagine, the equivalent would be like, no, you're in my way. It's like, what's the psychology there?
That's screaming.
Just
like
admit
screaming
that
by
you made a
Champagne.
mistake and be humble.
That screaming by Champagne and Jolie shows they have nothing really to talk about other than emotional stuff here. Let's go back to the CBC. Is it on there? Like, is that story, that scandal on there? $15 billion. And we're going to show you what Stellantis has to say about it later when we go to the international section. I don't see it.
I did a Control F and there's nothing. Stellantis is not there.
Why should it be? One of the biggest scandals. They signed a $15 billion contract that in the committee hearings, most admitted nobody read it.
And the Americans, like you say, they've just gone and put in just about that much money, haven't they? About the same amount of money into America and sat there like with Donald
Basically
Trump.
funnel Canadian money into a new plant in the United States. And then, Jolie keeps saying she's standing up for Canadian jobs. The Algoma Steel one, another one, when they blamed Trump, when that was the plan all along to lay those workers off because of them moving because they were encouraged and funded by the Liberals to move to new, greener technology.
And to kill the blast furnaces.
After lie after lie. And then just stand up there and scream. Oh, here's another one there from Holly Doan and Blacklocks. There's a warning now that propane stock is low. And that is winter propane stocks are as much as 30% below normal. And that's from the federal regulators. They cautioned that yesterday. The Canadian Energy Regulator said it was unclear from the conflicting long-range weather forecasts that if we're going to get a repeat of the 2014 price spike that prompted a federal investigation. Canadian propane inventories sit at average levels heading into winter, but the inventories were about 1.5 million cubic meters, at 20% below the 5-year average. And this has been going on for a while. There's stories out there since June on this lower inventory. About only 1% of Canadians use propane for essential home heating. Low inventories and unseasonable cold winter in 2014 prompted shortages across Quebec, Ontario, Great Lakes, and Midwest states. Usually it's in the more isolated areas where they're using propane, where the truck comes along and fills up your propane tanks, as opposed to people that have actually, are connected to natural gas through pipelines. Pipelines, remember, there are pipelines to your house, natural gas pipelines. Remember, they're trying to get people off of that as well, because apparently natural gas bad, although it's way cheaper to heat your house with natural gas. So it's almost one of the cheapest ways to heat your home. Brookfield related in this, the increase in Alberta Dam is partly related to the increased propane intake at Brookfield's PDH-PP propane dehydrogenation polypropylene plant in Fort Saskatchewan. Fort Saskatchewan, that's in Alberta there.
It's not a crisis, this, though, the propane being low, because, as you say, it's just people out in the in the country, in the bush usually, and there's no chance they're going to vote for the Liberals anyway. So it's not a crisis.
They don't matter.
Well, brutal.
Hey,
to put it,
who cares?
Let's talk about Stephen Guilbeault for a second, and the rest of that interview with Vasi Kapelos, and be very serious now after my dark humor. He said he basically said it was a mistake to build TMX, or like the Liberals didn't get anything back because Alberta didn't vote for the Liberal Party. He just out and out said that. He openly came out and said there's no point doing it because there's no votes in it. So what I've just said there about there not being any votes in the sort of people that use propane, according to the logic of Stephen Guilbeault, I'm sort of speaking like a senior member of the Liberal Party.
Well, here's a new poll out from Abacus showing that the Carney and Pierre are neck and neck.
He does seem to have gained a little bit of ground in the last few weeks.
I mean,
I don't know
again,
how, because it's not like he's done anything. I think it's more a reaction to Carney. I think finally now, people are starting to wonder a little bit about Mark Carney. I think the shine is starting to fade a little bit.
I'll just say one thing on this, and I'll use an old saying of Mark Carney's, who cares? Because the poll doesn't really matter unless there's an election. But you know what I mean? Like, it just bounce around here. But here's one that does matter. The annual food price index has some difficult news for Canadians already struggling to make ends meet. Your food bills are going to go up in 2026. The average family of four will be forced to spend another $1,000 a year on food. And that's according to researchers at Dalhousie. An average family of four expected to pay $1,000 more. The researchers estimated food inflation between 4% and 6% next year. That's still so high, right? The average family will spend about just under $18,000 to feed themselves. And that's, you got to be pretty frugal with that. And then the Conservatives put out a piece on this too, and they're saying, Carney told Canadians to judge him by their experience at the grocery store. Every month since, month-over-month grocery prices continue to rise. Yet they're not seeing that backlash. You're not seeing the stories so much, but it's expected to get worse in 2025. Compared to 2015, remember that date? 2015, the average food budget was $82.86, and families will now spend 112% more than that, almost double. And I don't think wages have gone up double since 2015. Are you making double what you made in 2015? Likely not. Most people would answer would say no. But food prices, food is one of the biggest costs out there, right? And your monthly.
Well, and the housing crisis simultaneously, and then you've got interest rates as well. If you have any loans,
insurance costs, your home insurance,
looking a bit dark.
Your car insurance, all these things have gone up dramatically. And access to some of the services, they keep touting free healthcare, and they even advertise it to immigrants, free healthcare. Free healthcare, if you can't get it, what is it, free? Is it still free if you can't access it? People waiting in waiting rooms, dying in waiting rooms. We've done the stories. Is it free?
But also, is childcare $10 a day? If in the real world that doesn't exist. I mean, it's an idea, isn't it? That's just a slogan, and that's another massive sort of killer cost for people. Not just, I said people, of some of the most important people in our society as well. The small group of people that are trying to procreate and produce the next generation. Not very many people doing that nowadays in Canada. And they're suffering to such an extraordinary extent. They say a family of four here. It's brutal.
The court systems in Canada are like a slow-moving, like just a grinding, slow-moving train. I don't even know if you call it moving sometimes, but here's because in the U.S., they at least, when they have court cases, they come out quite quickly. Bell Canada ordered to pay remote employees who declined the COVID vaccine.
Wow.
So you fire people.
4 or 5 years later?
You fire people because they won't take a COVID vaccine that work from home. And we saw that with the provincial government. We interviewed the guy. He was working from home and he refused to take the vaccine. Yeah. So we terminated him. For what purpose? For what purpose?
There was a kind of moral panic, wasn't there? There was a group hysteria, a society-wide hysteria at that point. And I think these are the people that ended up on the wrong end of it.
You succumb or you be fired. And it was just like unbelievable. And we've done so many interviews on that as well. I know so many personal stories on that too, especially from people working from home that had no contact with anybody. And yet they decided that they needed to be terminated because they wouldn't adhere. Anyway.
Because we were being told by the likes of Bonnie Henry and I can't even remember her name now, the federal one. Can't believe I've forgotten her name. Theresa Tam, wasn't it? Yeah, Tam. How could I forget? But we were being told by them that irresponsible, basically sociopaths that wouldn't take the vaccine were going to kill us all. We were being told that daily. So obviously, if you're a manager or something in a company, you'd be like, oh, well, I have to get rid of this guy because he's going to kill us all. He's a sociopath.
Yeah, and somebody's saying that natural gas, propane comes from, it's a byproduct of, oil and LNG, mostly from LNG. So propane comes from that as their.
Somebody also said that we censor them. I don't think that's right. We don't censor you.
That's your friends at YouTube. Don't blame us. It's not us. It's YouTube. YouTube has some automatic censors, some AI bots there. If you don't say the right thing, they censor you. Not us. I can guarantee it's not us. We're censored. We're censored with Bill C-18. They took away our audience of 200,000. So you can help us by hitting the like, subscribe, comment. We even, our friend hasn't shown up for a while. He's not winning any arguments. Lightning Rod, haven't seen him for a while. Oh, is he here?
He is here. He is here. Yeah.
I haven't seen
but
his
he hasn't said it. He only said hello. How's it going, Mr. Rod?
There you go. We're not censored. We don't censor Lightning Rod either. So there you go. Don't blame us.
He's censoring himself right now.
The government sending early retirement info to roughly 668,000 public servants, giving them the golden handshake, I imagine.
I mean, what's a 30-year, 40-year liability to the taxpayer, hey? Who cares?
I don't know who's the better touter now, Francois Philippe Champagne or Evan Solomon. But here's one of Francois Philippe Champagne's, the one where he gets up there and said, Canadians wanted this. This is about Canadians. We're in a dire situation. We're talking with Canadians. You do his voice way better. They told us one thing. They want us, the whole bold thing is they want us to do quickly. Well, it turns out their big tax cut, an income tax cut intended to deliver real change, will save the working poor. Ready for this? $11 a year.
Nice.
$11 a year.
Talking about Timmy's earlier. That'll get you a couple of hash browns.
You could probably go to Tim's and get yourself not a dozen donuts. I don't know what a dozen donuts at Tim's. I don't go to Tim's anymore. There's a hint for you. Don't go to Tim's. Don't go there. If they don't want to hire our own Canadian youth, then don't go there. It's simple. $11 a year. That's wow. The cost of that tax cut, $5.8 billion, the official estimate. $6 million price tag for the bottom bracket is what would have cost to increase the Canadian disability benefit to $7,000 a year, would lift over 200,000 people with disabilities out of poverty. $11. What are you going to do with that $11? That was like that taco and tinsel credit. Remember they made that out sound to be like so good. Justin Trudeau and the Liberals promised that taco and tinsel thing was going to get you about $800 a month. I can't even remember. But then they were going to give you $250 in cash. The money never showed up, and the taco and tinsel thing never amounted to much at all. Imagine that. But here's another one. $11.
And it's cost them a $6 billion cut to their revenues to get that $11 spread out.
Imagine that, $11 all at once too, right? Well, over a year, not all at once. All at once over a year, right? All at once, hey? $11. And also, you talk about some of their touts. They promised us 500,000 new homes a year. And the PBO's office came out and threw a bucket of cold water on that, said it's going to be more like 26,000 homes over 5 years. I don't know, I did the math. I'm an accountant, but I don't know if I can do the math for that. 500,000 a year versus 26,000 homes over 5 years. Is that short? Is that shorter? Is that less?
I think so. I think that's 5% of what they said they were going to do. So I reckon that's 95% short.
The PBO's conclusion is clear. Build Canada Homes lacks an overall plan to achieve the government's stated goal. Ambition without a plan is not leadership, it's wishful thinking. There you go. Like, I don't know. You tell me. Does that sound like a tout? You know, and Francois, how many times have you heard Francois Philippe Champagne say, Canadians, we listen to what Canadians ask us. Canadians ask us for money, right? And we give them $11. $11. And David Eby, somebody just put out there.
Approximately 1% of the extra cash you've got to pay next year to stay alive.
David Eby, another.
So there you go. That's 1%. You just need to get the other 99%, and then you too can stay alive.
David Eby had promised $1,000, and he made the Liberals look good because he got you zero. You got zero out of his $1,000. The Liberals promised you about $800, and there's for some people they're getting $11. $11 whole dollars.
David Eby also yesterday was talking about the BC Conservatives and One BC, and he was saying that these people are a disgrace and they've undermined. He said it's bad for all of us because they've undermined people's faith in our institutions. He used that magic phrase, and when he said that, at the time I was thinking, like, how about promising people $1,000 if you're elected, then you get elected and you don't deliver on $1,000? What do you think that does for people's faith in institutions? But there's never. It's like Melanie Joly writ large. There is never any self-scrutiny. There is never. It could never be David Eby. David Eby could never be responsible for undermining faith in institutions. It can only be the cranks and the freaks and the weirdos that he designates, people like John Rustad. It can't possibly be him, or the Lion, or Keir Starmer, or Joe Biden, or any of these people that think of themselves as centrists. They can never admit that they are the primary culprit in this decline in faith in institutions.
Again, you have to ask yourself, who held the wheel for the past decade? Who has had the wheel? That's where the responsibility rests. Turns out the Prime Minister here, he's like a spider, man. Like, he's got his fingers in everything. And Brookfield is like, he's got a tangled web. This is related to our Governor General wanting this skating rink. You got to listen to the excuses that keep coming up for this skating rink. This skating rink is probably going to be the Governor General's biggest scandal here. The Prime Minister Carney was the director of this charity, the Renewal Hall Foundation, that agreed to create tax credits for corporations whose donations were used to pay federal contractors on public works. So you can use federal like the money is going to come from basically federal corporations that are going to kind of get tax credits. It's just like nonsense. Access to information records show the foundation based in Ottawa acted as an intermediary in handling donations to build this $4 million skating rink at Rideau Hall. It issued tax receipts and it transfers funds to a third party, the National Capital Commission, to pay contractors. Why not just make this really tangled web and you can do all this stuff? And Carney was a foundation director until this past January 19, 3 days after he announced his candidacy for the Liberal Party. The foundation yesterday said arrangement was in full compliance. Of course, it's always in full compliance of the Canada Revenue Agency regulations. Censored records show an unidentified man was key in approaching prospective donors, including federal regulated companies. His name was redacted in access to information memos. Why do you redacting something? Just for something as simple as this, you redact the person's name. How is this a threat to national security? How?
This is like when finance people, or like accountants. It's when accountants go bad, isn't it? It's kind of, this is the dark side of the force.
How is this?
when they do things like this.
These redaction rules are just out of control. They just redact everything. You ask for an FOI and you get this page back. I mean, at some point we should have a Stephen Guilbeault that is against the waste of black ink on paper, because they just redact everything. So then what you get is just a piece of paper with black. Like, we've gotten some
terrible for the environment, isn't it?
The Governor General's office, so when questioned by Blacklock's, said it was working, because they're saying, like, how is this charity, right? Building a skating rink. Oh, it's working on a charitable purpose for the rink, though. You know what I mean? What's the charitable purpose for the rink?
Because they'll get some kids there twice a year.
Because this is being built at their official residence, so like, I guess she likes to skate and doesn't like to drive across town or whatever, like everybody else does. You know, we have to wake up your kids at 5 in the morning to go play hockey. The Secretary to the Governor General and currently working with the local and national organizations to offer more opportunities, you're right, for newcomers, underrepresented groups, and people of all backgrounds and abilities to experience the joy of skating. Not in another skating rink. We couldn't enhance some skating rinks that are already in place. You had to build one at the official residence of the Governor General. Because that's...
And how often is it really going to be open to the public? It'll be the next question. Or is it just going to be every now and then they'll take loads of photographs, get the news round,
how many
get
private
a CTV
parties,
will oblige, and then it'll shut for the rest of winter.
This is just pure patronage and just, again, just taking from the taxpayer, just taking and just like no concern at all with Canadian suffering right now. Just take what you can. Just take what you can. Redacting this name is just ridiculous. Redacting the name of the person. Why not, I guess, right? And then here's this one. There's like a contract which they should be cheerleading. ICE has asked a Canadian company to they want to purchase some of these armored vehicles. Listen to the way the CBC portrays this, though.
And when we're talking also about these ICE operations, there is a Canadian connection as well to what the agency is carrying out, and that's in the form of equipment that they're procuring from Canada.
That's right, armored vehicles that are being manufactured by a Canadian company called Rustad. It's a defense manufacturer based in Brampton, Ontario. Here's some video of some of their operations, but certainly notable here that the U.S. administration, that ICE, has turned to a Canadian company for this large order of these armored vehicles. In particular, these armored vehicles are called the Senator Stang Emergency Response Tactical Vehicle. According to promotional material from the company, Rochelle, they are bullet resistant, they are blast or bomb resistant as well. And ICE, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, has placed an order for 20 of these vehicles. It's worth about $10 million Canadian, this contract. And we understand that the reason that they have chosen this Canadian company at a time when, of course, Donald Trump has really been touting his America First policy, has been trying to take manufacturing jobs away from countries like Canada, steel and aluminum jobs away from countries like Canada, is because of this feeling that this particular company, this particular model of vehicle can fulfill the needs of ICE more than even some of those American-based companies that make similar vehicles. So all of these details first reported by a UK outlet, but it is understood that ICE has turned to this Canadian company because they can meet the timelines that ICE wants to see, in particular specifications about what they would like. And it's understood that these vehicles will be delivered to ICE within only a matter of weeks. And of course, all of this at a time that we're seeing these ICE operations ramp up in different parts of the United States, when their methods, of course, have come under scrutiny as well. So also an interesting Canadian connection here now to what we've been seeing play out.
Just desperate to be part of the American universe, aren't they? They're desperate to say, oh yeah, did you see those videos of ICE arresting people? And we're involved too. Canada's involved now. So now we can report on American news and pretend that it has something to do with Canada.
Shouldn't they be celebrating? She said, here's a contract coming to Canada, and Donald Trump is trying to take away all the jobs. Well, here's one he's offering you. He's offering you the use of Canadian steel, the use of Canadian contractors. You should be celebrating this. No, instead, we're saying, oh, we don't want to deal with that because it's related to ICE. You know how many other countries we want to do contracts with that have unscrupulous background histories? How much money?
Like the United Arab Emirates, who Mark Carney was just praising.
Or Ukraine. Look at what their checkered history. How much money have we given Ukraine? And you can pull up, just Google anything and see how much of a hotbed Ukraine is for crime.
And you're right to say given, whereas in this case we're selling something to the Americans. But I just think when she was describing how this product, this vehicle, is just like a world beater. It's like better than anything that the Americans can produce themselves. Is that not like a success story? Like big time. Like,
it's just like ludicrous,
for a Canadian firm to go up against mighty America in the manufacturing space and still win. I mean, that's exactly the kind of thing that we need if we're going to survive as a country and an economy, surely. But instead, it's like they arrested someone in Arizona. It's like, okay, it's. The moral system, as I've said, it just doesn't work anymore, does it? The the moral compass that Canada's elite possesses is completely out of date. It just doesn't work anymore.
This is your CBC, $1.5 billion of government propaganda that is trying to tell you a narrative. Here, this should be a success story for Canada. Like it's going to use Canadian steel and it's a Canadian company making money, and like goes against the narrative is that Trump's trying to take away jobs. Here's jobs being offered because it's Canadians building these things, isn't it?
And it's in Brampton, which is suffering a bit right now with
absolutely ludicrous.
Manufacturing.
Canadians need to have a vote and vote on whether we want to fund the CBC. At least in the UK, you can just shut off your television. You don't have to pay for that thing.
Yeah, you don't get a choice. Not in Canada.
Here's Alex Karp. He was at the Deal Book Summit with being interviewed by Andrew there. Let's listen to what he has to say about the New York Times. And Alex Karp is an interesting individual.
Culture. I'll tell you the biggest problem. No one believes the institutions are credible. And why don't they believe they're? And I struggle to believe they're credible too, because these business leaders make completely stupid decisions. And they get bailed out. A year later, they're getting huge bonuses. And what do the American people get? Nothing. And that's a huge problem. Like, if you make, so I think the real version is, I made a lot of decisions when we began talking, annoying each other 10 years ago. Hopefully I'm annoying you as much as 10 years ago, or more. When I made you know this, every decision Palantir made, FDAs, going public, building products, enterprise, large data sets, going to government, acknowledging American superiority, being pro-meritocracy, launching an AI platform, calling into question that AI models would actually be able to perform without orchestration. Every single one, our ontology, every single one of those was viewed as stupid. You know what I actually have grown to appreciate about capitalism? All the people who made the right decisions went broke, are going out of business, or now have to copy us. Microsoft launched ontology. Everyone wants to do FDEs. Everyone basically copies me and Palantir.
He is running one of the most important companies in the world right now, Palantir, and that stock has soared. I started following it around 20 bucks. I think it's bang on the door of 200. And Alex Karp is says what he wants. He's got I think it's autism. He's on the he's definitely likes to fidget a bit. And there's another clip of him too talking about fascism. We're going to play it a little bit later. But one of the key points I wanted to share in there was that we talk about it. These companies that go and beg for bailouts, then they take huge bonuses. Algoma Steel took a $500 million loan from the government and then took a big bonus. They shouldn't be allowed to do any bonuses if they're going to take money from the government. No bonuses if you're going to take money from the government. And that's the same thing with Algoma Steel, Global, all these companies that take these bonuses and while they're taking bailouts. Shouldn't be allowed. And they're laying off workers at the same time. You lay off the people because they stand at the podium, Algoma Steel, they stand at the podium and they talk about this loan is to protect jobs. Next announcement, they're laying off 1,000 workers, which is like a third of their workforce. The next announcement,
has there been a company?
They get bonuses. The executive takes money. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. And this is what Alex Karp is saying. If you're going to take money, if you're going to go and beg for money, then at least have a business plan. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. Like they should not be giving up money to companies, this corporate welfare, Stellantis, all this stuff without reading contracts. It's mismanagement. It's financial malfeasance. It's just ridiculous.
What's astonishing me is that every one of these stories that's come out, including that one about Domtar and the mill, Vancouver Island, every single story that's come out, like the 5th paragraph of every story is they were given X amount of $1 million in this year by the provincial or federal government. They're all of these companies are subsidized. And it just makes me think, are there any companies out there that are not subsidized in the Canadian economy? And what is going on? Like more generally, what does that tell you about the health of the companies in this country?
If I was in government and had the power to do this, and I'm a CPA, I would say, you want money from the government? no bonuses for the next 5 years, 0 bonuses, and no layoffs, right? Otherwise, go pound sand. If you want money, you want to stand at the podium and say this money is to protect jobs, then use it to protect jobs, not to fund your own executive bonuses. It's absolutely ridiculous. And this continues on and on. We could go on and on and on of all these bloody stories. And the same thing going on with that skating rink. You really want to do something where you can give people access to skating rinks? I mean, I raised 3 kids. I know what it takes to get up at 5 in the morning and drive clear across town so you can access a rink. Build more public skating rinks. Why do you need one in a private residence? That's just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And our government corrupted media, they don't cover it like that, do they? You're not seeing that Redu Hall story on CBC. Did we see it today? Holly Dona Blacklux has done it 3 days in a row because it's a scandal. Does it show up on CBC and CTV? No. Are they looking out for the best interests of Canada? No. They are corrupted and crippled. And Mark Carney yesterday, when he stood up there and says he stands for free and independent media, that is one of the biggest lies there is.
Mark Carney also stood up and said exactly what you said, but obviously it was the press gallery speech, so it's supposed to be a joke. But he said, he's referring to government-funded media, government-subsidized media. It's funny to see that he knows deep down what a mess this is.
We just got confirmation Gavin Dude's going to be in with us this afternoon. Just got a text from him saying we're going to do an interview this afternoon. Just in time, we're going to do the BC News here. We're going to cut a lot of this up because a lot of this doesn't make sense anymore. But let's go with the BC News.
Live from the Now Media Newsroom.
We had in there mostly the John Rustad stuff, because yesterday he was refusing to step down, even though there was a letter from 20 members of his caucus saying, thanks for the work, but time to move on. And then they even appointed an interim leader, Trevor Halford, to take over for him. But John Rustad said, no way, Jose. There was quite a few pieces in there, and we're not going to play them now because it's not much point to it. Because he knew the writing was on the wall. They're basically the funding. When we interviewed Jonathan K2 and Mario Canseco, basically, I think Mario Canseco said it best. It was when he interviewed him saying that, they're really going to come down to the funding numbers. And it doesn't look like a lot of people are willing to fund John Rustad continuing as leader of the Conservative Party of BC. But let's Domtar. We're going to talk about that Domtar, that mill, that pulp mill. That's a real loss. That was a major, major loss. And again, the jobs that are there, those are good-paying jobs. All these resource sector jobs are good-paying jobs, and they basically fund the community. Those jobs. I mean, I've lived and worked in mines and mills, and those mines and mills are basically the lifeblood of a community, and that's what this is. It's a lifeblood of the community. And we're going to let's listen into a little bit of this Domtar interview here.
Vision, obviously, for Domtar. It is very, very bad news, not just for these families, but for our province. And the Minister of Forests, myself, the Minister of Labour, will be working together to do all we can.
Okay, so he's saying he's going to work to do all he can, but from what I'm hearing from you, there is more that could be done here.
Yeah, look, we've got a very good relationship with Premier Eby and with the government, and we're going to continue to work with them to find solutions here. That is our commitment. We've got 3 mills that remain in British Columbia, and we're going to work with this government to make sure that we can protect those workers and those jobs. There is a lot more to be done, though, to be clear, and we're going to need to work together with the province to find these solutions. We've proposed many of them, and we really do need the province to listen to those solutions and to implement them quickly. Things are dire in the forest sector in British Columbia. It is a crisis. They need to act now. They should amend the Forest Act in the next legislative session. Subsidies alone will not work for the sector. We need to make substantive change to the regulations and the hosting conditions in BC and focus on things that we can control. And if they are willing to do that, they've got a great active partner in Domtar.
Is that the primary issue here, a legislative or regulatory block?
It is primarily, that's within the purview of the BC government. They can control access to fiber supply in British Columbia, and that's the primary reason you're seeing these mills, including ours, go under. Markets fluctuate. We can't control that. We can't control what the United States is doing vis-a-vis tariffs, and we can't control what the federal government is doing either, frankly, but we can control in British Columbia what the hosting conditions are here in BC, and so we really ought to focus on that going forward.
And Chris, if the regs aren't changed, what does that mean for your 3 plants which remain?
Well, frankly, just like any other mill in British Columbia, those mills and those jobs will be in jeopardy if we don't see substantive change from the government. And so we'll have to work closely together to find those solutions. And that involves not just the government of BC, the federal government, local governments. I had the mayor of Port Alberni call today to try to avoid the same kind of thing that's happening in Crofton today. We also operate a mill in Port Alberni on Vancouver Island.
We've done so many forestry stories, interviewed so many people, including the then Forest Minister, Bruce Ralston of the NDP, Brenda Bailey, who was the Jobs and Innovation person at the time, and then Kevin Falcon and John
and the
Rustad.
guy who's now Forest Minister, Ravi Palmer.
John Rustad, who had some experience with forestry as well and comes from that area where forestry is a big thing. It's been in shambles and in trouble for a long time, and this is one of the key things, is what he's saying here: access to fiber, access to fiber. It's not Donald Trump, it's access to fiber. Our forestry industry, I interviewed Kofi too, and Kofi said, 10,000 jobs lost in forestry. This is in 2 years, this is about a year ago now. Access to fiber. And I interviewed Premier Eby himself on it. Asked him about access to fiber. He says, yeah, we got problems. We got some issues that we got to work on. We're working on it. He even admitted to that. Yeah, where are we? And then they created a group to look at the problem. And what was the reaction from the industry? Not enough representation on there. So they got a bunch of people on there that are all environmental concerns, and nobody wants to talk about what the industry needs. And then a lot of this goes into wildfire fighting too, because if you don't have a new forest regeneration, you have an old forest that is dry and brittle and ready to light on fire. Access to fiber. Over and over and over again. And all they want to do is straw man Trump, right?
The cynic in me can't help but point out that people that work in mill towns in BC don't tend to vote for the NDP, do they?
No. And Eby finally admits that tree access contributing to the suffering of the forestry industry, but he won't budge on old growth. But he said he will be allowing old growth trees to, in part, access to lack of access, but he said he will not be allowing old growth trees to be harvested. It comes after 350 workers in Crofton were told they're losing their jobs due to the closure of the Domtar mill. If there's something else we can do, absolutely, but the idea we would pulp old growth in order to buy a little bit of time is not the solution we're looking for. I mean, it's access to fiber, and I've interviewed one of the executives from another mill. And he said that, a lot of the people in Vancouver, the voting base there, believe that all the trees in BC are from Stanley Park. And they don't cut any of them down. It's a renewable resource. Forestry is a renewable resource.
That's at the heart of the controversy with this old growth classification, isn't it? That some of the trees that are classed as old growth they're not like beautiful groves of hemlocks or whatever, or cedars. They're just pine, or they're not valuable. Not even the ecosystems are valuable. But yeah, it's age is apparently adequate as long as it's old, even if it's not particularly useful, doesn't support wildlife or anything like that. But if it's old, then we're going to protect it. And we've got a clip from Eby later on where he talks about that. He talks about the parks and things, and I don't think people understand. It's a bit like oil as well, isn't it? It's like,
let's play that clip before you go.
People have just made their mind up. They've been radicalized about it.
Yeah, let's play that clip.
Well, hi, Premier. I wanted to get your reaction, I guess, a couple of things here. Can you let us know if you're going to be in Crofton for that meeting this afternoon? And I wanted to get your reaction, given that we've heard from the company and the industry that they're placing much of the blame for what's happened with this mill on your government. not Trump tariffs. We're weeks away from Christmas, 350 people out of a job. What's your message to those folks in that community?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. The meeting will be this afternoon in my office. I understand that the head of the union and the mayor are both here, and so we'll be meeting here, and I'm grateful for them coming here. We still have some votes, and we have our work to do here in the legislature. Otherwise, of course, I would be in Crofton. With respect to the reasons for the mill closure, I accept that there are key restrictions on harvesting old growth, cutting down old growth trees that have driven up the price and access to fiber on Vancouver Island. I believe this is a necessary decision. Pulping old growth is a temporary strategy at best, and we need a long-term strategy because that's the available, affordable fiber, as the industry calls it. They have to go further afield to get trees. Their transportation costs have gone up 40%. And that means that with very low pulp prices in Asia, combined with high costs of transportation for the trees that are available, the economics aren't working for the company, and I understand that. The other compounding factor that isn't unfortunately related to the Trump tariffs is that feedstock for these mills also, and it's not just this mill, but other mills in the province, comes from waste product from sawmills. And the sawmill waste product that feeds these pulp mills has been dramatically drawn down as well because these mills have laid off shifts. They have temporarily closed because of the impact of, for example, for Canfor, a 46% tariff imposed by the Trump administration. And so these things are all connected. The forest industry is an ecosystem of its own, which is...
Just read between the lines.
Hey, you got to blame Trump again.
Yeah, and Asia. Asia also got blamed. But just read between the lines what Eby says and also what Jolie says. But she's saying it about steel. He's saying it about lumber. He said, we need a long-term solution so that it's sustainable and blah, 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 blah. He's basically saying, yeah, you're all going to lose your jobs. And the lumber industry is going to be a tiny fraction of what it was when my party took power. However many years ago it was now, 2017 or whatever. That's what he's saying. And that's what Jolie's saying about steel. It's kind of, she's saying the jobs are going to go away, but you're still going to do other things that we consider to be, that align with our views on the environment or what the green revolution or whatever it is. But you're all going to lose your jobs. And many of you are going to lose your jobs. And we're going to sit here and say, oh damn, boo-hoo, what a shame. Moving on.
Well, you can also scream and say, I'm here for the jobs. We will stand with you. Stand with you. Stand with us at the grocery checkout counter and pay for the groceries. Stand there.
Jolie could certainly do that. She could pay for quite a lot of people's groceries, I'm sure.
Let's move on to international news. We got a lot here to cover.
Live from the Now Media Newsroom.
And Trump rolling back all the mandates that Biden put into what he calls the Green New Scam, rolled back even the cafe things and everything, and he had everybody in the boardroom. We're going to play this first clip here as he had the room full of the big three automakers and a lot of other automakers in the room too, all loving what's going on. Let's play this clip.
Office, let's listen in. Ridiculously burdensome, horrible actually, cafe standards that imposed expensive restrictions and all sorts of problems, gave all sorts of problems to automakers. And we're not only talking about here, we're talking about outside of our country, because nobody could do it. Nobody wanted to do it, and it was ridiculous, very expensive. It put tremendous upward pressure on car prices, combined with the insane electric vehicle mandate. Biden's burdensome regulations helped cause the price of cars to soar more than 25%. And in one case, they went up 18% in 1 year. Today, we're taking one more step to kill the Green New Scam. It's part of the greatest scam, probably, well, other than Russia, and a few others I could name. The greatest scam in American history, the Green New Scam. And it's a quest to end the gasoline-powered car. This is what they wanted to do, even though we have more gasoline than any other country by far. And people want the gasoline car. They want everything. They want electric. They want any They want to have lots of alternatives, but they do want the gasoline car right now.
Good on that one. Well, we do have another clip here. And then he has all the, you're going to see the Jim Farley there, Mary Barra there, like all, and Stellantis there. Let's play this clip here.
Mr. President and Secretary, all the important lawmakers here, competitors, today is the victory of common sense and affordability. We're very proud of Ford to be the #1 auto producer in our country. 80% of the vehicles we sell here we make in our country. And we never left, unlike many of our competitors. We're the #1 exporter, and we have the most auto factory workers. And this CAFE standard that is aligned with customer demand is the right move for a lot of reasons. We were #2 last year in EV sales. We were #3 in hybrid, and we're the leading brand for combustion. We believe that people should be able to make a choice, as you said, Mr. President, and we will invest more in affordable vehicles. This allows us to invest in affordable vehicles made in the U.S., which we will take the lead on, and will allow us to make vehicles more affordable. So thank you for making this step for all of you.
Thank you very much. One of the other things we're doing, it's separate from this meeting, but I think everybody here would agree with it. If you go to Japan, where I just left, and if you go to South Korea and Malaysia.
That's good on that. So Jim Farley with Ford, I think $5 billion they're going to make an investment. And then Stellantis, imagine this, $13 billion they're going to invest in the United States. Where'd they get that money? Weird, hey?
Must have just found it in their back pocket. So, great.
So yeah, and then you know, like Stellantis, this says they're going to have 5,000 new jobs in the United States, and they're talking about the red tape's gone. I mean, there's some things that Canada, if they wants to copy, there's some things in there that are absolutely beautiful for auto manufacturing and stoking the automobile industry. One, drop the EV mandate permanently. None of this pausing stuff. Let some certainty back in. Number two, Trump is allowing people to write off the interest costs on a vehicle. Imagine if you could write the interest off your tax return on just not for corporations, because corporations already get that, but on personal vehicles. He's allowing people to write the interest costs off. That is going to stoke so much purchasing of new vehicles. It's absolutely incredible that you're going to be able to do that for the average person to buy a brand new vehicle. And then he's rolling back to CAFE standards, which is actually going to reduce the cost of these vehicles, because a lot of these costs that have gone in these vehicles are all these standards they had to meet, and they couldn't meet them. And a lot of these manufacturers, with the Biden administration and the Liberals here in Canada, they couldn't meet the standards, so they had to buy these carbon credits from companies like Tesla. Tesla's like laughing their faces off, right? So they're basically selling cars, but also selling carbon credits to the other automobile manufacturers, so they don't need them. Right? They don't need them, so they get carbon credits for what they manufacture, and they sell them to their automakers. So it's just crazy. So why not do that in Canada? Why not allow Canadians to write off the interest rates on brand new vehicles? You were going to stoke a lot of purchasing, and that'll drive the economy and drive, like the money moves through the system. Those aren't the things they're doing. They're doing incentives, or what incentive? $11 a year for some people. $11.
What they're doing is making you pay an extra luxury fee if your car is $100,000.
So you got to pay a luxury tax here in Canada instead, like for a pickup truck. But they took it off boats and airplanes. You would think those would be luxuries where a pickup truck would be, wouldn't you think?
It's almost like they just wanted to tax cars, didn't they? They just wanted an extra little revenue source.
There's just more on this Ford and the $5 billion, Stellantis. I think there's a lot of the stuff here, and like some of the people that come back. But one of the guys I do like in the United States a lot is Scott Bassett. He's a straight shooter for sure. And Scott Bassett, he was at the New York Times. I don't know why he went there at the Deal Book Summit, but listen to what Scott Bassett had to say when he was being interviewed on Fox there.
We're going to have a conversation, and we got there, and he just immediately went into attack and gotcha mode, and I just couldn't take the hypocrisy of it all. And I guess he had to play to the New York Times audience, the Deal Book audience there at Lincoln Center, and I just had to fact check him, and I believe that the New York Times.
Oh, you did more than fact check him. You checkmated him.
Well, again, it's just, as they used to say on Dragnet, just the facts. And I don't read the Times.
Friday. Yeah.
I don't read the Times anymore, but people send me articles, and the last couple of articles I've gotten are just so far from the truth. And I was sitting there thinking, what are people, like, how are people going to construct the historical narrative of this great second Trump presidency in an accurate way when the supposed paper of record is so far off?
And that's him with Sean Hannity there on Fox. And I watched the interview there with Andrew Sorkin. He's also on CNBC. And Scott Bassett said he doesn't watch or read the New York Times, but he does watch CNBC still. But I watched a few of Andrew Sorkin's interviews, and he's the one that interviewed Elon Musk when Elon Musk said, "Go F yourself" to Disney.
When he said it, yeah, he said it to the crowd, didn't he?
Well, I know he said it to Disney. He said he was in the audience. And he said, "You're going to threaten me, you're going to blackmail me, go F yourself." And I think he repeated it a few times. He wanted to make sure that the point was very valid. And then Alex Karp, it's a good interview if you want to go watch that one. Andrew Sorkin interviewed Alex Karp there as well. But the New York Times has lost a lot of its shine off of it because it's, basically become, I would say, very biased as well. I used to subscribe to the New York Times for a number of years because it was one of the paper of record. Similar to BBC. I would never count CBC into that, BBC or the New York Times, but they used to be, I would say.
The New York Times has always been liberal-ish, yeah. But I think they've just got so much worse. Talk about radicalization earlier. The election of Donald Trump in 2016 radicalized a lot of journalists and a lot of institutions, didn't it? And the New York Times is still suffering from that. Though there are some signs of green shoots that maybe they're returning to being sensible again.
We saw that with the LA Times, with the owner there made some changes, the owner of the LA Times, and we're seeing that with Jeff Bezos, even with the Washington Post. There's some changes coming, like some of the editorial staff quit when they couldn't have their pay. And
Newsweek is another one.
And I think it's CBS as well, too, that a change in the driver of the bus there, right? Trump drops a bombshell on Ukraine talk. Let's listen to what he has to say on this one here.
On Ukraine, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were there last night with Vladimir Putin. Can you give us an update about those talks? It sounds from what the Kremlin is saying that they're not going to compromise. Can you tell us what you've...
I don't know what the Kremlin's doing. I can tell you that they had a reasonably good meeting with President Putin. We're going to find out. It's a war that should have never been started. It's a war, if I were president, we had a rigged election. If I were president, that war would have never happened.
You've heard that before. One thing about Trump is that he holds cabinet meetings, he holds these press conferences, and he invites all the press in, asks tons of questions. We don't get that in Canada. We just don't get that access. And the access that is provided is vetted organizations that get to go in there. The media that is
heavily vetted,
friendly media that is allowed to ask questions.
And you don't get this kind of thing, like a random British guy just asking questions, like, you get GB News, you get like Indian news. I think wasn't there one like Afghanistan news? Like it's an open season. Anyone's in. When was the last time you heard Mark Carney being asked questions by any other serious outlet in another part of the world? It's just the same. It's the same cast of people again and again and again. It's about six people that get to ask him questions. 5
months of you emailing Stephen Guilbeault, nothing. And now you've emailed Mark Miller, nothing. Like, we do this over and over again, nothing. And here, Trump is the threat to democracy. On any given day, he's in front of the media, 3 hours of the day? Is he not? Like, the The cabinet meetings, what Trump, Biden had a cabinet meeting once every 8 months or something like that? Trump has them.
In terms of press access, there's no one else in the world. It's not just a Canada versus US thing. I think there's nobody else in the world gives as much access to the press as he does.
When he's flying on the plane, even Caitlin Collins, no friend of Donald Trump, maybe I think she might be coming around from CNN, says that you fly on Air Force One if you are happy to be, chosen to be on there. And he picks random people that go on there too. You get all kinds of people that go on Air Force One. And she said, you think you're going to sleep when you're flying out to Dubai or something like that. There's no sleep because Trump doesn't sleep. So he calls a press conference like whenever he feels like it. And he'll just walk into the room and you don't want to miss it because you're going to get in trouble from your boss. If you're just like, where were you in the press conference? Well, I was sleeping. Well, that's the last time you're going on, right? So you got to be ready to go at a moment's notice. There's no holiday. And
but we have to. Sorry, go ahead.
We're going to come to it later. Actually, I'll talk about it in a bit here.
I was just going to say, what does this actually mean, though? That he gives access to the press, he gives access to anyone. What it means is, I think, fundamentally, is that he is willing to defend his positions, any position. He's willing to defend it because he's always challenged. Like, what have you done about Ukraine? What's going on with this Venezuela thing? Did you execute these people that you shouldn't have? Like, all the questions get thrown at him, and he always has to answer. Because he's willing to defend his positions and his decisions. But what about Mark Carney? I still don't know what Mark Carney thinks about BC ferry scandal. The federal government loaning BC ferries $1 billion so that they can buy Chinese ferries directly from the Chinese Communist Party. I still don't know what Mark Carney thinks about that because he hasn't been asked that question, because he is not open and he's not willing to defend his positions. And I just think that is, just intellectually, that is so shameful. If you can't even defend your positions and your decisions, what does that say about you? Like, what's going on in your head? Like, how much do you really believe in those positions? How much are they really being scrutinized, And I just think there's so much bad and wrong with Donald Trump, in my opinion, but this aspect of Trump and also this aspect of the United States and American culture is world leading. They're the best in the world at this.
If we had access to Mark Carney, how many questions that should have been asked in the past 8 months could you come up with? I can think of just on the top of my head 20 questions that have not been asked or that he's not answered. At least 20 questions. And they're not asked by our media. He doesn't provide the access. Is because, like, even the simple ones. McGuinty the other day asked, how much did we spend in the EU? Do you think Trump would have hid that answer? How much did you spend to join the EU SAFE program? He would have told you. I watch all the press conferences. He just tells you. He doesn't care. It's what it is. It is what it is.
Well, sometimes he even says, I shouldn't be saying this, and then he tells you anyway.
It is what it is. But here with the Liberals, they tell you that they read the contract, didn't read the contract, did this. Mark Carney should be answering to the Stellantis contract too. Why was it redacted? Why was it redacted? Your MP said that Stellantis asked for it to be redacted. That's not true. What have you done to your MP? Who read the contract? Who's responsible for the contract? Whose name is on the bottom of the contract? Who's signing a contract without reading the contract?
Yeah.
BC Ferries. Who gave the money? Who gave the authorization to give the money? All those. There's so many of them. So many of them.
And just literally, like, what has Mark Carney said? What does he think about it?
Well,
we don't know. The man who could stop it, he could kill it if he wanted to. What does he think about it? It's.
Now, the conflicts of interest are just like there's too many to even start on. Anyway.
Yeah, the Brookfield thing as well. If he was open to the press like Trump is, he would get a Brookfield question. Like, every third question would be a Brookfield question, and he would have to really defend his positions. But because he's the Prime Minister of Canada, he doesn't have to worry about that. Not a transparent system.
Maybe we'll get an answer on the Brookfield stuff from the BBC one day.
Yeah, maybe. Or GB News if they get let.
If they I don't think they would ever let GB News into the room.
No way. They would put them with Rebel in the gutter.
Speaking of our friends at GB News, here's a little interview with GB News here on American. Here, let's listen to this Trump official talking about censorship and a little warning for our friend Keir Starmer.
add one more thing on the Online Safety Act, and I emphasized this earlier, but I want to say it again. It's misguided and unfortunate to apply that law in Britain, but applying that law extraterritorially, which means applying it to speech that has nothing to do with Britain, does not occur in Britain, is on American platforms by American users on American political issues, purporting to censor Americans in America is a deal breaker. It is a non-starter. It is a red line. And that's what Ofcom has tried to do with the Online Safety Act, and that's one reason the American government is concerned.
OK, but will your government then take legal action against Ofcom if they try and overreach in the way you've described?
Well, there's already formal action proposed. There is a bill before the House called the Granite Act that would amend an existing statute to clarify that as a matter of American public policy, any penalties imposed by Ofcom are unenforceable against American companies. So our legislature will likely consider that, and will certainly consider other options if indeed the British government insists upon trying to nullify the First Amendment on American soil with respect to America.
You do remember when they wanted to censor Elon Musk, even arrest him. Some British officials said that they were going to come and arrest Elon Musk.
They've just overstepped. I mean, the EU says similar things. Germany is particularly notorious for sending these, like, they send letters to people, emails to people saying that they've breached German law, even though they're like sat in Pennsylvania or something like that. I mean, they're just, you know, the Americans are keeping them in line a little bit. But the thing is, what she said there and what the Americans said generally, it's kind of like, do what you want to your own people, just leave Americans out of it. I mean, a lot of Europeans look at that like a sad dog that needs to go for a walk. You know, it's like, why can't I have that? Why can't I have the First Amendment?
Well, why can't we have that? You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, right? Like, we continue to tighten the noose. I interviewed, I think it was Lisa Bildy, I think is her name. She's a constitutional lawyer here in Canada. She said that, you know, the United States exports all its culture wars, but they don't have the protections that is offered by their First Amendment, and that's an absolute protection. And, you know, when they were talking about arresting Elon Musk because of X, I mean, you know, when he did that thing with Tommy, what's his last name? Tommy Robinson?
Yeah.
And then, you know, said that, you know, Elon Musk must be stopped and all that stuff. And just like some people reminding him, you know, you guys lost the war of 1776, right?
It's funny. But the sad thing is, the First Amendment is, as I've said before, the American Constitution is just really a codification of, you know, English common law and values that were dominant in England in the 18th century and earlier.
English common law version 2, just a better version of that.
But
and I know your most famous person that you like, Thomas Jefferson.
He's a good lad, yeah. He did some rather useful things in his life. But the thing is, the British, they've moved on from that, and many would say in the wrong direction, away from liberty, away from personal. Americans, because they have this constitution, they can't. They're stuck with it, really. I mean, they have changed it a few times, but it's extremely difficult to change the constitution. So they're kind of stuck with these, you know, old English ideas, while the English themselves have turned their backs on those ideas. It's a very peculiar situation.
And then, you know, they're trying to isolate Vladimir Putin, and here he is landing in New Delhi, being welcomed by Modi. Let's watch this little clip here. That's good enough. They don't look like they're at odds too much.
Modi doesn't care about all that stuff, does he? He wants to stay on the right side of American sanctions, obviously, which have been threatened.
Yeah.
But he's not going to turn his back on Russia. India and Russia have been chums for ages, back to the Cold War and the Soviet Union days.
I mean, that was the warning. That was the warning with Biden and them when they did this NATO thing and basically, you know, like, you know, some people argue that pushed Russia into this invasion, is that the BRIC nations would get tighter. And the one that they're really worried about is Russia and China. And Russia and China have deepened their ties. They also have this agreement now that it's like no compromises on they will support each other no matter what. And then
relationship without limits.
Yeah, and then now India, which is part of the BRICS nation, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and then South Africa, and then like there's some others. Saudis are in there. There's a bunch of people that are being invited to this BRIC nations, and there was even talk of that BRICS nation creating a currency to rival the U.S. dollar, which Trump has threatened them. If you dare do anything with that, you'll get sanctions, hit so hard with sanctions, because that U.S. dollar gives them the money to power the U.S. military, and that military gives them the power of the U.S. You know what I mean? Like that, those things are a kind of a circular loop. The U.S. dollar and the U.S. military, because without that, they couldn't have that military, and you know what I mean? Because the U.S. dollar is the reserve currency of the world, right? So that is all important. Now we're going to move on to some tech stuff. We like to finish off with some brighter stuff here, but this is a good thing here from Jensen Huang here. One of the most important companies in the world right now to NVIDIA.
The company wants me to succeed. The thing that, and we started out today talking about President Trump, and I was about to say something. And listen, he is my president. He is our president. We should all, and we're talking about just because it's President Trump, we all want him to be wrong. I think the United States, we all have to realize he is our president. We want him to succeed because
no matter who's president,
that's
we should have
right.
that attitude. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
We want him to succeed. We need to help him succeed because it helps everybody, all of us succeed.
That's a good interview to watch. Him on Joe Rogan. I watched that full thing. It's long. Joe Rogan podcasts are almost as long as us, right? A little bit longer, actually. Ours are shortened versions. But Joe, that's a good interview with Jensen there. He talks about Elon Musk a lot, too, and about what Optimus is going to bring to the world. And also talked about, him and Joe Rogan shared some things that Donald Trump doesn't sleep. Like, he's texting even Jensen Huang at 3 o'clock in the morning and texting him things.
Bizarre.
It's bizarre for sure. And he's like a child. They're talking about him being like a child. He'll like send texts that have like emojis that blow up and stuff like that too, right? So.
I just want to compliment one of our a member of the audience here, James Fawcett there, talking about Mackinda and the World Island. That's like, I don't know, am I wrong here? But I think of that as being quite obscure. A lot of people don't really know about Mackinda. He's like the father of geopolitics, who theorized that the World Island, which is like Asia, what you were just talking about, Russia and China, that's the true like heartland of the world, and if they unite, then you're doomed. But I'm impressed, Mr. Fawcett, that you're like you, Mackinda.
Well, there you go. And then here's something from the Washington Post here saying that food prices are down now. Here it is. In Canada, food prices up, and food prices forecasted to go up even and more. But here's the tale of the two nations. Here's the United States.
Our minds around this affordability crisis, though, because we do have gas prices coming down. We have oil prices down about 25% since President Trump took office. The price of many things are coming down while wages are going up. Even the Washington Post, I just printed this out on my way up. Washington Post prints, actually, today's food prices are a bargain when you look at the buying power and the amount of hours you have to work to buy the same amount of goods with wages up.
The only thing I got out of that is our studio needs to get better. Fox has a really cool studio.
It's very flashy.
If you could hit the like buttons and subscribe and all that kind of stuff so that we could get a studio as big as Fox News one day. Canada needs an alternative network than the government-corrupted CBC. Give us more voice, give us more audience, and help us build a bigger voice out there to counteract the narrative from the CBC and the CTV. I don't know who watches that. I mean, I would say that the CBC is a far left extremist organization, but that's me. Here we go. Alex Karp. More from Alex Karp.
And I'm curious where you land. Do you think that President Trump is a fascist?
Of course not. I think that's stupid, honestly. And you know what? Again, you can go all day on these stuff. It's honestly idiotic. I grew up half my life in Germany. I spent time with actual fascists. I went and talked to lots of former Nazis. We have a democratic society, and, he won in a landslide. I don't see any sign of him being, look, of course, I don't agree. I don't know what the point of these,
Well, the reason I was asking it was because you did study this was your thesis, and there's a lot of people who have different views about this. Let me just ask you this. So originally, the CIA, do you remember this, was an early investor in Qtel, the venture capital arm, was an early investor in Palantir. This is why I'm asking the question, actually, because I think there's a lot of people who are looking right now at sort of the industrial policy of the country. The country is taking stakes in businesses that they think are important, national security issues and the like.
But isn't that a classically social democratic view?
Well, maybe it is. But my question to you, it was just going to be, if the White House came to you and said, look, hey, Alex, we really like you. We think you're important to this country. You're a very important part of this. And if we're going to continue to give you these contracts, we want a piece of the action. What you would think of that?
I mean, we'll cross that road when we get there. My understanding is people who are in dire trouble go to the White House and ask for money, and they say, we've made terrific business decisions, and we want your help. Why wouldn't the American people participate?
That's what he's saying there is, like, if you go to the government and beg for money, this is another point there. You go to the government and beg for money, then either give up a stake in your company or give something back to the people. You're taking taxpayer money. You're taking taxpayer money. So yeah, Intel went there begging for money, and he said, in exchange for that, I want 10% of your company. Not for Trump himself, it's for the American public. He's already made, like, I can't remember, $40 billion off that transaction. So if you're going there, what do we get? We give $15 billion to Stellantis. What did we get? We didn't even read the contract.
We get fewer jobs.
What we got was investment into the United States. They're just investing $13 billion, which is almost the same. We gave them $15 billion. They're investing $13 billion US. We give them $15 billion Canadian. They're investing $13 billion US into the United States. What did we get? We gave Algoma Steel. We just gave them a half a billion dollars. We gave them earlier about $500 million, so they're on the hook for about $1 billion so far. What are we getting from them? Are we getting participation in their company? What are we getting? What do we get? We gave Honda. How much did we give Honda? How much did we give Northvolt? How much did we give the Lionor? How much did we? All we get is nothing. The people that do profit are the ones that are on the junkets, the lobbyists, and all this stuff that are going. We talked about Gregory Fargas there. There he was, $300,000 in trips. Now we have a governor general that's trying to build a skating rink at her official residence. For what purpose? Because these governor general posts tend to last forever too, right? So she's building a skating rink in her backyard. Does she like skating that much? What about Canadians? What do they get in their backyard? What do they get on the dinner table? It's absolutely ridiculous. And the CBC and the CTV, where are they doing these stories and saying this is absolutely ridiculous? $8 million, $4 to $8 million. We don't even know what it's going to be at the end of the day. Freeland, there's Freeland's on the screen there. Freeland loves more money for Ukraine. She's going to have $4.5 billion to go to the Ukraine. Here's a lady that's shown you how good she is with the Canadian tax dollars. Now she's going to have $4.5 billion to disperse in Ukraine with no oversight because it's national security. It's like clownish. It's absolutely.
And it's also a woman that's described herself as Ukrainian. She's the one that gets to spend Canadian taxpayers' money in Ukraine.
And she said it's an investment.
Sounds sensible.
Trump, when he said, here's the last money you're getting from the United States, and for that we get, I can't remember the deal, 50% of the resources in this part of the land. Right? Do you know what I mean? He got something. What did we get?
Well, he also got the Canadian taxpayer to pay for his contributions to Ukraine, for America's donation of weapons to Ukraine.
The money that we give, it just goes straight to America. And then they fund the machine. So it's like they said, buy a Canadian first. It's like clownish. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And then here's another one from Jensen Huang. And when he first created those chips there, he said nobody wanted them in the world. You know who wanted them? Elon Musk, who is a vision, right? Elon Musk is a visionary and a creator of wealth. Canada hates him for some strange reason.
No, the Liberals certainly hate him.
Yeah. And then here's another thing from NVIDIA here. Let's listen to this clip here. One more from Jensen Huang in this interview here. Oh, he can't find it. Doesn't anyway. He talks about it in the future, maybe 2 or 3 years from 90% of the world's knowledge will be created by AI. I mean, that's the truth. Energy is everything. Energy is absolutely everything. And actually, we're going to end with this last one here. This is a Chinese university. This is what they're doing in China. Check out this university. Turn the music off on it, though, please. Off, yeah. Just show us the university here. What did they build that with? I wonder. That's good. What did they build that with, do you think? And what did they need to build that with?
Ambition. That's what they needed.
Just ambition.
Got it.
Maybe some windmills. Some virtue signaling.
Yeah.
A dash of identity politics. Is that what it was? A dash of that, a dash of this? Or was it energy?
But an idea as well of China's story. This city here, Xi'an, that's a very ancient city in China. It was the capital of the empire thousands of years ago. It's where the Terracotta Army was found, near that. And, the old Qin dictator who created the empire of, first united China. It goes back thousands and thousands of years, and yet they're busily bringing it into the 21st century. It's like it gives you an impression of what the Chinese are all about, what their ambitions are.
So here it is in Canada. I was just in Tokyo, and I was just blown away in Tokyo by the, like their train system and their bullet trains, and also the no homelessness that I saw in 10 days, and no drug addiction on the road. No, it was clean, no graffiti. Everything was just spotless everywhere. And in Canada, like our biggest, what have we built in the last? Well, we got a Governor General that is grifting us for a private skating rink in the Governor General's residence. We got a guy in New York Council there living in a penthouse, right? Remember, and the Canadian military, half the military housing is unfit to live in, according to the Auditor General. And we got a guy living in a penthouse. The bureaucrats are running Canada. The bureaucrats and the MPs and all that are just basically raiding the till, and then they're telling you what they're doing. Francois Philippe Champagne, maybe you can do an impersonation of Francois Philippe Champagne telling you what he can do for Canada. He asks Canadians what they want, and Canadians want to be ripped off. That's
we
what
are going tax cut. You will be able, there'll be headwind for Canadian, but we're going to cut taxes for you. My favorite thing that he said recently is where I think they started to get worried about all of the fear mongering. So he started recently to say, like, you know what, we're going to be okay. We're going to be fine. But that's not what you said before the election.
I asked my mother. She said everything's good.
Yeah. His mother provides quite a lot of political advice, I think, financial advice.
And Jolie can't remember which lie she's on. I read the contract. I didn't read the contract.
Well, she's angry about it. That's what we know. She's defensive about it, whatever it is. She's angry that you brought it up.
And according to Evan Solomon, he hasn't spoken to Jensen Huang. And somebody needs to tell Jensen Huang that Canada leads in AI. Somebody needs to tell them that they need to come to Canada because they don't know what they're doing there. Because the Americans are under false impression, I guess, that they lead in AI. Jensen Huang, Elon Musk, and the rest of them are under the false impression that they're leading in AI.
Evan Solomon was saying as well, the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. And he's saying, like, this is like the railroad of the 21st century. And if you get, if you lag behind, then you're completely fail in this century. Again, like, what, should we not be a bit more worried? Because I don't think we're doing that well, are we, Evan?
Well, somebody should tell the stock market as well, and I say the stock market never lies. The stock market, somebody should tell them that NVIDIA is grossly overvalued because it has, the market cap of NVIDIA is almost, isn't it triple of Canada's or double Canada's GDP?
It seems to got a shift in order of magnitude every week, doesn't it? And so I don't know.
But somebody should tell the stock market that they need to look north because Canada leads in AI. I'm not sure. Palantir, obviously doing something wrong. One of the most important companies as well. Tesla. You know, as a market
Maybe
cap.
they can learn.
What's that?
Maybe they can learn from us. They can learn from Evan Solomon.
That's our show. We're over the 2-hour mark. We're breaking. We're entering Joe Rogan territory, but there was a lot to get through here. But John Rustad is out. David Eby, obviously, he's got a new worry. He's gonna, you know, that face of worry. He's got that Mad. Remember the Mad magazine? What Me Worry?
Yeah.
I think that's David Eby today. What Me Worry? I think you need to start worrying, David Eby. And depending on who they pick for leaders, and BC Conservatives, don't mess it up, man. Find that Stephanie or Stephen Harper and bring that fractured party together and rescue BC. Our healthcare system needs, especially in the interior here, it's just a mess, an absolute mess. That's our show, though. Back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Every morning at 9 a.m. Like, subscribe, help us share, help us get a bigger voice than CBC. They have more money. We probably have almost the same audience as them right now. I don't know who's listening to CBC other than Liberal MPs in their own echo chamber, but help us get it out to more people. All right, thank you for watching Now Media.
Just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.